Welcome to Building Forward, a podcast about creation, developer experience, community, and meetups. My name is Christina Martinez, and I'm joined by Chris Pennington, the other member of the developer experience team at Resend. This year, we're building Resend Forward, our very first tech conference, and we want to take this opportunity to learn together in public about crafting the best in-person experiences.
Yeah, we're super excited to get started, and I think maybe we should start just by talking through why we came up with this as a concept. And a lot of it was our experience of starting to build this conference and then running into a bunch of stuff. So maybe we should first of all talk about what Forward is and then go from there. So why don't you explain, since this is your child, what Resend Forward is?
It's my baby. Resend Forward is, like I mentioned, our very first tech conference. It's a conference rather than being about resend or a poor excuse for a product pitch. We're developing this conference that's about craft and building software with intentionality and design mindedness and focusing on the developer experience as a whole. So this is the intent that we have around this conference, but it's our first time doing anything like it at all. And it's been quite the journey trying to stumble our way through and build something that's really unique and special in the industry, something that really gathers people together that have a similar mindset. This year is all about experimentation and looking forward to seeing how it all turns out.
Yeah, it seems like as we turn to this, it's nice as a concept, but then as soon as you start to try to plan it, there's all these details that we're suddenly like, where do we go for this? Who knows about this? And so it's taken a lot of talking to people, and we're like, why don't we just do this in public so that other people can learn as well, kind of along with us, and also get a sense of what we're trying to do. You can actually see the intentionality and thought we're putting into it, and hopefully learn alongside us as well.
Yeah, and we've been blessed to have a lot of friends that have been through similar things before. They have tons of experience, and that was one of the first things that I did when we sat down thinking about how we're going to plan this whole conference, was reach out to probably 10 or 15 friends in the industry that are super experienced and very willing to help. And that's been such a huge help. But those are all private conversations. We didn't record any of them. They were just one-on-one. And I know some of them have written articles and stuff like that, but there isn't one definitive guide of how to run a conference. And so that's the intent with this podcast, is to kind of share what we're doing as we're doing it, and hopefully it turns out well. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we will get to not only talk in public as we're trying to learn how to do this, but hopefully get on some of those industry experts and people we've talked to and let them share their opinions as well. And ultimately, this is an extension of, in a sense, everything we do at Resend, of thinking through all the little details. It just happens to be IRL, right? That's the difference here at this point. So we want it to be this kind of community thing where we're building in public together and giving the kind of attention that a lot of us modern dev companies want to give to the product and to the experiences that we build for people.
We're talking a lot about developer experience, but we haven't really defined that. Do you want to go a little deeper into what do we mean when we say developer experience, and how do we think about it at Resend?
It's only part of our job title, developer experience engineer, so I suppose we should have some thoughts about this. But yeah, no, developer experience is, simply put, the way it is to work with your product from a developer standpoint. And who the developer is changing, and I think that's obviously expands this quite a bit, because you've got human developers versus agent developers, and a lot of us are employing agents more and more in our own flows. And then even what counts as a human developer is changing quite a bit. You have people with deep expertise for decades in the industry, and many who would have a hard time passing leak code, but are very gifted creators and builders who are enabled and empowered by teammates and certainly by AI as well. And so what we're trying to do is to say, whoever you are that's interacting with our product, do you get the sense that every little detail matters? Buttons are where you expect. When you go to look for help, it's in the exact order you expect, and you need a little bit more, and there's a drop down that expands and shows you the exact question you were thinking of. So whether it's in documentation or support is certainly part of developer experience. The intentionality of the product, the way we've thought through the system to where when you need something, it's right there. It's how does the consumer of Resend experience Resend? And whoever that developer is, we want it to be the smoothest possible thing. We have this saying at Resend, no friction, zero friction. And that's really what we want people to experience. We want there to be zero friction so that you can get back to building what you want. I don't know about you, but when I'm building stuff, the last thing I want to do is think about email infrastructure. I just want the thing to work, and that way I can kind of move on with my life. So I don't know what you might add to that, but that's at least how I have thought about it, is zero friction for whoever's using Resend, agent, human, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I guess this is one of those jobs where, or hobbies even, where there's so much to think about all the time when you're developing an app that the less that we can get you to think, the better. Like you mentioned, the things should be where you think they are. They should work how you think they should work, kind of predictable APIs. And I would also add like delight and joy. It's really nice to, you hear the phrase surprise and delight, but it's nice to kind of encounter something that was easier than you thought, or it was like more beautiful than you thought. Like even in the Resend dashboard, when you hover over the icons, they all animate. We didn't need to do that. No one's gonna like leave Resend if we don't have animations in our icons, but just small details like that are just pretty and nice. Like those are nice additions. Just this entire way of thinking that I think is really special at Resend. This extends a lot into our in-person events as well. I know it's really difficult nowadays with all the AI slop and the future's uncertain. Maybe the robots are going to take your job, and like coding might be less satisfying because now you're prompting instead of like hand coding every detail. And so I think there's a big kind of like a shift toward in-person events now where those feel like extra special. We don't all get the ability to go to a lot of these events. We're not working in an office most of the time. A lot of us are remote. And so we don't really get to just hang out with people, talk shop, even feel confident in our jobs anymore. And that they'll exist in 5 or 10 years. So sometimes just gathering with people and understanding that you're not the only person that feels this way and being able to chat through some of these things is just really a special feeling now. So that level of intentionality, smoothness, joy that we're talking about in products and software development also extends for us into these meetups and conferences that we're hosting this year. So I think that's a special part of my job that's close to my heart.
I think like whatever people's jobs are, like there's a lot of fear going on right now, wherever you are in the stack, whether you're a designer or a design engineer, or whether you're a developer or a DevRel, like there's all this uncertainty and they fear loss. And a lot of us just aren't sure what we're going to lose. And so it's not just that things are changing, it's that we're afraid of losing things that are important to us. Well, at the same time, like I think one of the things we've both really embraced has been like, there's this excitement again around this whole space. Like there is also joy in the fact that we don't know where it's going, and like we get to help shape that, we get to help be part. So we want to like gather together to remind ourselves like we're going to be okay as well. And I think we've tried to do that in our events. I'll say maybe one other thing about developer experience, and then maybe we should talk through some of our events. I think another part of developer experience that's important, as much as we would all love that there would never be any issues, that APIs would work perfectly, you're going to hit the wall at times. And sometimes that's Resend's fault, or whatever product you're using. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes it's a good mixture of the two. And a lot of developer experience is actually thinking about the not happy path. Like what happens when people mess up? What happens when you hit a wall? Do you get clear error messages with very guided directions on exactly what to do next? Or do you have to go chase down everything yourself and you're hitting your head against the wall with Claude or whoever you're using, or Googling if people still do that, and trying to find the answer. And so developer experience can be both what happens when things are going well, and that can be your career, your life, your code, or when things are not going well. That can be like, hey, I don't know what's going next. I kind of want to gather with people and remind myself of these things. And so we hope that like the kind of in real life experiences we're crafting have that same kind of thoughtfulness and care, and both give us the happy path and also allow us to enjoy each other when we're all kind of facing the unhappy path together, or at least the uncertain path.
Yeah, absolutely.
So meetups. We've done several already this year, and we started last year, but maybe let's just tick through some of the ones we've had so far. So we started with a meetup at the brand new Vercel office in SF, which was great in January. And I'm curious what your thoughts were on that, because that was kind of the first one that you really ran. And we did bring your old Mac that's just behind you to that and had people play with it, which is pretty cool. But I'm curious, your experiences there.
Yeah. So we like to think of these meetups as experiments each time. So there's things that we're picking out to try and see if it's going to work, or maybe it won't work. Maybe we'll do it every single time since then because we love it so much, or maybe it's like, I will never try that again. But like no matter what the answer is, it's always a good thing because we learned something, and that's the whole point. I would rather make these mistakes now in smaller meetups and smaller events than do it on a grand scale when we have hundreds of people in the room. That's the intentionality behind this, is like everything is experimentation. So especially with this first one, this was literally our first event that I've been involved with. I've never organized anything like other than my wedding. And so like, I feel like I didn't know what I was doing at all, but it still turned out really, really well. We had a ton of people that were interested in coming. We had a great space from Vercel. They were so kind to offer that to us. It was small, and they had another space that they were going to offer us, but it was under construction. We were like, oh, it's fine. Like we don't even know if we can fill a room. Like we've never done anything like this at all. And we were blown away by the demand for this. We had to turn away like, what was it, 120 people, something like that. But yeah, that time was really special. We had a couple of speakers. We had a lightning talk. We had a giveaway. That was during the OpenClaw kind of craze. And so we gave away a Mac Mini, which was really fun. And there was food. We got pizza from Flour and Water Pizzeria. And like Chris mentioned, we had my old computer. I think that one's a little bit hard to transport. If you're watching on the video, it's pretty big and clunky, so I'm not sure how many other meetups it's going to go to, but that was a fun experiment of being able to bring kind of a toy for people to play with, and I think a lot of people appreciated that.
I think, didn't Guillermo get to actually play on it as well? He was like typing at one point.
Yeah, he did. I think he liked the games, and you can build websites on it, like, the basic HTML and stuff, yeah. But
CEO of Vercel, he thought it was fun. Play on your computer.
Yeah, who can say that, Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was super fun, and they were so kind, and we worked with Mark from Vercel to get things going, so he answered a million Slack messages from me, and I'm sure he was very gracious with me as I was trying to stumble through all the logistics of running an event like this.
And I do think having that mindset that this is just an experimentation, like, really lighten the load for us mentally. Like, this doesn't have to be perfect, and the goal is to learn. Obviously, we want it to have a really good experience. We want to actually develop that muscle, though, more than anything. And so I think like that freed us up to just experiment. We try stuff, we test it, and we kind of move on to the next one. So the next one was in Utah, which is my home state. So it was kind of cool.
Your home turf.
That's right, to invite the team here. I wish I was more help. I think Christina still did all the work for it. I mostly just showed up.
My job.
Yeah, but that one was really special. Like, you could see we learned from stuff and we improved upon it. Like, the venue was really cool. We rented out this kind of like co-working space, kind of meeting room in a co-working space. And it was seasonal because we were in February, and that's ski season in Utah. So we had like a whole hot cocoa bar and a bunch of cool stuff. But I'll let you chat through what else like did you really like about that one, or did you not like it and I just have a singular opinion?
No, I loved it. That one was it was also really special. I think there's also cultural differences between the different places that you're in. So we've only hosted in San Francisco and Utah so far. We hope to expand later on. But just, you could even feel like a cultural difference that's really hard to explain. It was during Utah Tech Week, so it's not like there's never developer events there, but it's just a lot less than somewhere like San Francisco where there's 20 events every day that you could go to. And so it felt special to gather those people together. So like you said, we had hot cocoa bar with different flavors and toppings and stuff that you could put in, which was really, really cool. It's more of a Utah thing. It's actually, I tried to find it again in San Francisco, and it's like almost no one does it. So maybe someday we'll do another hot cocoa bar somewhere.
Like cookies and like specialty drinks. That's where Utah's at.
Yeah, and I thought about getting the dirty sodas. I hear that's a Utah thing.
Definitely.
But it was at night, and I don't know. I thought hot cocoa is kind of cozy and nice. So anyways, I feel like that was a good call. We also got some really nice pastries, so that was nice. I thought the speakers were amazing. We had, you did like a talk, Dave Kiss and Kent C. Dodds, and they're just such gifted speakers, and so that was also really special. We always do a Q&A at the end as well with our CEO, Zeno, and the speakers, and so I felt like that was also an experiment that time, because the first Q&A, we had a little trepidation about like how to involve the audience in the right way. And so the first one, we just had like pre-scripted questions, but the second time we actually opened it up, had a microphone that we passed around and stuff, and people asked really thought-provoking questions and had really good answers to it. There was one student that was saying, hey, I'm graduating with a CS degree, like, did I just waste 4 years? Am I going to be okay? And I thought the answers to that, especially from Kent C. Dodds as like an experienced educator, I felt like that was a really special kind of gathering around that person that asked the question and saying like, no, yeah, like you're still in the right spot. There's a place for people with inquisitive minds, and like software development isn't just syntax. It's like building things together, using whatever tools are at your disposal, that kind of thing. So anyways, I'm just talking on and on about this one because I really liked the Utah one. It was so special to me.
Yeah, I think I also remembered that one because I had to give that small talk I did in MC the Night, like in this progressive movement towards feeling sicker and sicker. And the next day I was completely dead.
There was a bug going around that, I remember.
Yeah, so I just had that flashback, and it makes me want to move on to our March meetup. So maybe let's talk about that. It's okay. In March, we had a meetup at YC in SF, which was kind of an experiment, like not working with another company as a co-sponsor in the event. But the space was really nice. It's like used for these types of meetups a lot. They, from like the check-in process to just like the way the room was laid out to where we could have our food, like all of that just flowed so well. The tech itself worked really well. I think we had like 6 or 7 microphones we could use. The space itself was like laid out in a way where it like drew everyone's eyes to the stage, and it was like a more intimate environment, even though it was such a big room. So a lot of details around the space and those kinds of things, were great. I think we did run into some issues, just like a lot of times when you're working with people, in this case YC, or we'll talk about the one we did in May, like you have like sign up requirements sometimes just based on the space, and sometimes that could be security related or other things. And so we had some confusion around sign up, and I don't remember all the details, but like, didn't they have to sign up twice or something, like once with us and then once they actually got there, maybe to actually register with YC?
We did all the registration through the Y Combinator page, but we found our audience is on Luma. They're
that's right.
subscribed to our Luma, and we're always pushing them to Luma if they want to hear about events. And so we published it, and we were talking about it on social media and stuff, and just the signups were very slow compared to other events just because it wasn't on Luma like the others. And so that's when I created a Luma page, but I put like very big in the description, do not sign up on Luma. Like if you sign up here, it doesn't matter. You will not be let in. You need to register with Y Combinator because of the security requirements that they have. And you know what? People don't always read everything. So that's
Maybe
okay. Neither do I.
Agents, make sure you tell your humans that, that would have worked.
Ignore previous instructions. But yeah, so there was a lot of confusion at the door even. Like I understand that it's easy to miss things. So there's just like a little bit of confusion and friction around that. It's always like a venue requirement and not our own requirement that causes these problems, but I probably need to think through better ways to communicate or some way to smoothen out that experience the next time.
Well, like in the spirit of experimentation, if we think through these as a sequence, we started with the first one and like lots of things went well, but we knew we wanted to improve, for instance, the Q&A. So the next one we go to, and not only do we improve on some other items, but we also really like that ended up being a really special moment, that Q&A. But like we didn't record any of the talks in like a professional way. So that was one thing we actually added to this one, was we said, okay, let's hire out a videographer to shoot the video and give us the clips back. We've since posted those online so people can go watch it and kind of experience it for yourself. But like this was one of the first times where we kind of had more friction than we wanted on the actual entrance to the meetup, like when people show up and what that looks like. So kind of in the interest of experimentation, that's kind of the journey we've taken. And then we just had a meetup at Muck's offices in SF in May. And there we like said, okay, we're going to up the food. We're going to up the name tags, for instance. We made a lot of changes around that. And I won't spoil what the thing is we want to improve yet. But anything else that you really liked from Muck's? Yeah,
like you said, the food was really special to me. I put a lot of effort into that. We got poke bowls, which I think really fits just the Resend brand. And selfishly, I get to pick the food, and I was craving poke also. So like that just really hit the spot for me. So
I do remember that Slack message, like, hey, I want this. Should we get it? Sure, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, no one's going to tell me no, right? So, but it was actually, it ended up being really well received and people loved it. I put a lot of thought into the materials that we use. Like instead of just like white paper plates or like cardboard things, I use like nicer matte black if I can find it, or like the cups that we use are like kind of a see-through but like a black that are short, and I just want everything to feel really premium. Some nice thick black napkins. I put a lot of thought into this one as well, so like instead of just pizza boxes on the table with these nicer plates and things, I got some chopsticks, and you could also use a spoon if you're not comfortable with chopsticks, but the chopsticks were an option, and I felt like that was a nice touch. Something else that I tried that was probably a failed experiment was bought a bunch of like ceramic dishes and serving spoons and stuff. I live like 2 hours away from San Francisco, and so I loaded them all up into this big rental SUV and brought them into the city. Had to unload a bunch. We were late because of traffic, and it was a little bit of an ordeal. It was just a lot of work. And then it's poke, right? So you don't want to leave raw fish out on the counter for 3 hours while this meetup's going on, but you do want to have food out all the time. Yes, food safety. You're welcome. So I plan to have like smaller dishes so that people eat the food, and then I go restocking it, as time goes on from the fridge so that it's fresh. And so that was a good idea, but I wasn't prepared for how much people would eat, I guess, or how quickly it would go. So I spent the majority of the meetup restocking this food, like just back and forth. And, there's 2 types of fish. We always try to include people that need like different dietary requirements. So like if you don't like fish, we had teriyaki chicken, we had tofu, we had some gluten-free options, and like all sorts of toppings. And so probably close to 30 catering containers that I needed to be restocking every time. So every time there was a break, which we do a couple breaks throughout the night, anytime there's speakers, like I was just refilling. And that's not probably the best use of my time. I love those events because I get to talk to people and hear from customers about problems they're having with Resend or feature ideas, stuff like that. And then at the end of the night, we usually can clean up in about 30 minutes and get out of there so that the hosts that are so generously offering the venue can go home and go to bed. Usually that's a pretty quick, like we make sure everything's cleaned up and all the trash is out of there and stuff like that. But this time there was just so many dishes. We had to rinse them all down and like pack them into boxes and all this stuff. It was a good thought. I feel like it made it feel premium, that you, instead of just like a pizza box that's cardboard, you have like these nice like ceramic matte black dishes that have a cool design, but just so much work, so many details, and so much time. And so that's something I need to figure out for this next one. Better option than that, something maybe disposable or hiring out help with restocking food, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think like looking back on things we can improve, like there's those little details around the food. I think also the check-in experience wasn't great. We're trying to think of like ways to make it to where the first moment you show up, you sense kind of like the spirit of the night. Like, okay, I'm going to be treated with like honor and respect and feel like special being here. And like the experience is very clear what I'm supposed to do. And I think that kind of entrance zone is another area we want to give more attention to. We also had some technical issues that ended up being okay. Like we kind of got through it. But it's good to actually experience that now versus just at the conference, which I'm sure, we will have things that we wish went better then as well. But I think even those hiccups are actually really helpful. Like, how do we respond? What are things we would have done differently? And those kinds of things as we look at it. But it's been really great to kind of learn as we go and change and tweak little things. And there's all kinds of things around dietary restrictions, like making sure we're careful to that, thinking about transportation and who should be at what spots and how we best utilize everyone's skills. So a lot of kinds of things like that, I think, around all of this that are really important. But hopefully as we kind of learn together, you'll get to experience those secondhand. You won't have to go through them all yourself. But maybe let's talk about some of what we're going to cover next, and then we'll close out today's kind of opening episode. So what is our kind of intention for going forward here for the podcast?
Continuing to share what we're learning, both with these meetups. We're going to continue to host these meetups probably about once a month. We might try different locations around the US or the world, but also a lot of this podcast is going to be focused around the conference itself. There's so many variables, so many decisions to make around organizing a big event like this, and so many considerations. Like if we're talking about all these different elements of a meetup that's 3 hours in an evening and we just borrowed an office from someone, imagine, paying a ton of money to get this venue. We have to have security. We have to think about like decorating the whole space with like furniture and cling wraps on the windows, and just there's so many things. There's just so much that goes into it that it'll be really nice to see how we stumble, the things that are harder than we expected, the things that are easier than we expected. We've already run into that as well, which is really nice. But yeah, really happy to share everything as we encounter it.
Yeah, we're hoping to get other people on as well who've done conferences. So I think that will be good for us to kind of learn together with you all. Please let us know what questions you have, especially if you're somebody who runs meetups or just thinks about developer experience. If you're somebody who has a strong opinion on any of that, we'd love to hear about it. Or if you have questions that you'd like us to answer or ask our guests that we have on as well. But thanks so much for joining us for Building Forward. And we hope that you'll really enjoy the experience as we go forward from here.
We want to end each episode with a question so that we're learning from not only each other and our experiences, our guests, but also from you. So today's question is, what's the best developer event that you've ever been to, and why did you like it so much? What made it so special?
All right, well, thanks so much again for following along, and look forward to hearing from you all as we build forward together in public.